The International Criminal Court has decided to place an arrest warrant out for Russian President Vladimir Putin. They allege a multitude of war crimes, but in particular, they're talking about the alleged abduction of children. Now, Russia's Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, is also listed as someone who needs to be arrested. Now, they say that there were crimes committed in Ukraine from the 24th of February 2022, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion of the break-off provinces. Now, the reason they specifically want Putin is here in the ICC statement. On the basis of evidence collected and analyzed by my office pursuant to its independent investigations, the pretrial chamber has concluded there are reasonable grounds to believe that President Putin and Ms. Lvova-Belova bear criminal responsibility for the unlawful deportation and transfer of Ukrainian children from occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation, contrary to Articles 8.2a, 7, and Articles 8.2b8 of the Rome Statute. Incidents identified by my office include the deportation of at least hundreds of children taken from orphanages and children's care homes. Many of these children, we allege, have since been given for adoption in the Russian Federation. The law was changed in the Russian Federation, though, the presidential decree by President Putin to expedite the conferral of Russian citizenship, making it easier for them to be adopted by Russian families. Now, of course, this arrest warrant means absolutely nothing inside of Russia because it's not a signatory to the International Criminal Court. And personally, I'm surprised that the ICC found something to do other than prosecute Africans, which is usually what they do. And that's basically the only thing they can be relied on for, is to prosecute African warlords. So the problem is there's a couple of things wrong with this. Those are primarily ethnic Russian children, and they're moving them out of a war zone, and many of them are already orphans. All they're doing is taking Russian orphans, because they are the Russian ethnic areas that voted to leave, and transferring them to Russia, where they would be adopted and not in a war zone. So you can kind of see the problem. I mean, I understand what it is that they're trying to say, that they're Ukrainians, they're Ukrainian citizens. The problem is that they're already ethnic Russians. Their parents are pretty much already dead, and they don't have families. And they're being moved out of a war zone into what would be essentially the same people culturally. See, they already voted. Lugansk and Donetsk have already voted to leave. They're not really Ukrainian citizens anymore. Most of them were moved in the beginning by the Donetsk and Lugansk government away from the war that was being launched. And on top of that, 3 million refugees from that same area chose to go to Russia and not the West. Imagine that. People who live in a majority ethnic Russian area, who are ethnic Russians, would choose to live in an ethnic Russian area, or pardon me, country. But there's another dimension to this. There's a little thing called Operation Baby Lift. Now, this was an operation during the Vietnam War in which the United States kidnapped thousands of Vietnamese children. Like, literally took Vietnamese children away from Vietnamese and brought them to America without the permission of their parents, for the most part. Like, that's literally the name. Baby Lift is the name of the operation. A cursory glance at that operation would seem almost as if this accusation here is projection, which it so very often is, coming from an imperialist power. Now, the U.S. and NATO are all too happy to cheer this on, cheer the ICC going after Russia and to prosecute them for alleged war crimes inside of Ukraine. And I don't doubt for a second that there have been war crimes on both sides inside this conflict. But it's interesting that this comes after the United States threatened the ICC officials with arrest if they tried to prosecute them for war crimes in Afghanistan. You know, that war that dragged on for like 20 goddamn years. And the whole thing was actually a war crime from the beginning because it violated the UN Charter, because it was vetoed by several countries, and the US invaded anyway with its NATO allies and then committed mass human rights abuses, like murdering the doctors at a Doctors Without Borders hospital. Now, that's a story that I've been through in the past. Essentially, they started attacking a hospital that was run by Doctors Without Borders. The U.S. claimed that insurgents were inside of it. The doctors in the hospital said, no, there are no insurgents here. This is our hospital, an international aid hospital. And the U.S. proceeded to attack it anyway, despite them being told by the doctors on the inside to stop bombing them, and ended up killing them. Of course, the ICC wanted to prosecute over that, but the United States wouldn't actually let it. So they certainly don't recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC when it comes to them. So you can imagine how other people might feel the same way, that if the law doesn't apply to them, to the United States, maybe it just doesn't apply to them either. And this also occurs at the same time in which the United States is knowingly hiding, refusing to share intelligence of alleged Russian war crimes from the public eye, or particularly the ICC, because they're afraid that if they release this will set the precedent to go after American soldiers for crimes committed during their wars. So if this was really about getting the Russian war criminals, why would you be hiding potential evidence of war crimes? Because this really has nothing to do with whether or not a war crime has been committed. This has entirely to do with attacking Russia. Why has the ICC not said anything about the multitude of people inside of Ukraine that have been victimized by their own government? I've said absolutely nothing. Videos of all these incidences are available publicly. They can see it. It's all over social media. And in the end, name a war that didn't have a war crime. War practically is a crime against humanity itself. But the accusation of being a criminal in war doesn't really mean very much when it's coming from someone who did the exact same thing and refused to face justice when it was their turn to be judged.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.